Hello everyone, Andre here from SWL. Welcome to episode 6 of my series Listening to the World, the SWL DXing report. In this podcast, I talk about radio-related news, frequency changes, news stations, and anything else that might interest DXers. This program is presented as a video podcast, so you can just sit back and listen, or you can enjoy the visuals in the video if you want to look at some images while you are listening. I do create some AI images sometimes, just to add some visual appeal, but as we know, AI images are never perfect. I enjoy playing with them though, to see how they render radios and people enjoying radios. For those of you who would like to listen via your regular podcasting apps, there is now an RSS feed available for my podcast on Spotify. The RSS feed link is in the video description, and there is also a link to the program itself on Spotify. In this episode, you will hear an exclusive review. There is a new long-wave station that is set to open in Finland. You will also hear about the release of a radio journalist from Russia, news about radio listenership in South Africa, in the US, and in Mozambique, some frequency news, a little about the new D-220 radio from XHDATA, and I end with the regular propagation forecast from the Space Weather Prediction Center at the US's National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA. Let's start with a roundup of radio news from around the world. The US Agency for Global Media reports on its website that an American journalist who works for Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty, Olsu Kurmasheva, was released on the 1st of August after 9 months of detention in Russia. This happened as part of a large-scale prisoner exchange program between the United States and Russia. Kurmasheva was detained in Kazan, Russia, on October the 18th, 2023. She holds US and Russian citizenship and lives in Prague, Czechia. She traveled to Russia on May 20, 2023 to care for her elderly mother. She was then temporarily detained while waiting for a return flight on June the 2nd, 2023. Authorities at Kazan airport confiscated her US and Russian passports, and she was fined 10,000 rubles, that is about $103, for failure to register her US passport with Russian authorities. But even before she could pay this fine, she was detained again for failing to declare herself a foreign agent, which is law in Russia. On December 11, 2023, Russian authorities launched a third investigation against Kurmasheva for spreading false information about Russia's military. She was convicted on this charge on July the 19th, 2024, that's this year, and sentenced to 6.5 years in prison. But then she was released along with other prisoners on August the 1st. There are still 3 other Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty journalists who are in prison in either Belarus or in Russian Crimea. There is good news about radio listenership in general. The Financial Mail in South Africa reports that the most popular radio station for online listening in the country is Jacaranda FM from Pretoria, followed by East Coast Radio from Durban. These are 2 commercial radio stations. According to the Interactive Advertising Bureau of South Africa, the IAB, Jacaranda FM attracted 5.64 million users to its website between April and June 2024. This was nearly 1 million more than its closest competitor, East Coast Radio, which recorded 4.7 million website users during the same 3-month period. These are high numbers, but of course not everyone who visits the websites stream the radio station. So listening on regular radio receivers still remains the most popular way to access radio in South Africa. The biggest radio station in South Africa is Ukhozi FM, which broadcasts in isiZulu, and it has a weekly listenership of almost 8 million people, making it one of the biggest radio stations on earth, according to the South African Broadcasting Corporation website. Meanwhile, the website Radio Today reports that medium wave and FM listenership in cars in the United States is on the up after a sharp dip during the COVID pandemic. 60% of in-car audio listening in the US now is on FM or medium wave radio, with Sirius XM, which is a subscription audio service in the US, in second place, attracting 13% of in-car listening. So 60% of people listening to audio in their cars in the US listen to either FM or medium wave radio. And in-car radio listening appears to be trending back towards pre-pandemic levels in the US. 49% of all radio listening in the US was found to be done in cars in the first quarter of 2024. And this is compared to a low of 40% only in the first quarter of 2022. The International Organization for Migration, a United Nations agency, reports on the use of radio to reach internally displaced people in northern Mozambique. There is an insurgency in some areas in northern Mozambique, which has led to the displacement of thousands of people. The IOM, with other partners in the area, has set up radio listening groups in communities affected by displacement in northern Mozambique. These radio listening groups target internally displaced persons or those who have returned home, and then also the host communities for these persons. The radio listening groups meet regularly to listen to pre-recorded audio and radio programs, and then they provide some feedback and talk about what they heard. According to the IOM, these radio listening groups help facilitate two-way dialogue with communities. Quite an interesting idea, I think, to bring radio to those who might not otherwise have access. On to my regular frequency news. Al-Azam Radio, as I reported last week, on 11745 kHz from Jeddah in Saudi Arabia, is still off air. I haven't heard it at all over the past 2 weeks. Yemen Radio International is still fluctuating between the buzzing noise and the actual station. But this past week, it was actually really nice and strong, the actual Yemen Radio International transmission on 11935 kHz. For example, this past Saturday, I heard Yemen Radio International itself, bright and clear. China seemed to be testing some transmitters over the past week. Various frequencies used by China Radio International and China National Radio were active outside scheduled times, which I picked up during my regular monitoring. They played only Chinese classical music, similar to what is heard on some of the foreign language transmissions of CRI, like CRI Portuguese. But these, whatever they were, tests, I don't know, I picked up Chinese classical music on 11720 kHz and 11785 kHz at around 1800 UTC, and this lasted for more than 90 minutes. I also heard the same music on 11620 kHz and 11710 kHz around 1430 UTC. The music lasted for more than 2 hours. And I had the same music on 9655 kHz at 2120 UTC. All these are regular frequencies used by China, but they do not have any scheduled programming at these times when I heard the music. So one of my viewers commented on a video that I posted about this, that these are probably tests for transmitters that had been upgraded in China. It sounds likely to me. But yeah, interesting maybe to monitor these frequencies. These are not scheduled transmissions, just Chinese classical music at the times and on the frequencies I mentioned. Reception quality at my location in Johannesburg, South Africa was excellent, as you can hear. And then some news about VOA. In my own monitoring of transmissions that formerly came from Sao Tome, I confirmed a number of frequencies that seem to be off air now. VOA in Portuguese used to be on 17655 kHz from Sao Tome between 1800 and 1830 UTC. It is gone. The French transmission from Sao Tome used to be on 11900 between 2100 and 2030 UTC and on 6045 kHz at the same time. Also gone. And the English transmission on 5940 kHz at 1600 UTC also seems to be gone. I am busy compiling a list of all the former Sao Tome frequencies to see whether they are still being transmitted or not, and to identify where they come from now with the help of the World Radio and TV Handbook. Most of these were beamed towards Africa and are still beamed towards Africa if they are still on air, so my location in Johannesburg gives me a unique advantage to monitor these and report back on what is on air and what is not. I hope to have a complete list by next week for my next podcast. Now for an exclusive reveal. A DXer in Finland, Matt, is planning to start his own long-wave radio station, Arctic Radio, on 252 kHz. Matt plans to start broadcasting in October if all goes to plan. Here he is.
Well, I'm hoping if all going well, I will be broadcasting with 1 kilowatt. We'll say weekends from October. I mean, that's a realistic timescale that it's going to happen. Things might go wrong. Something may happen. I just don't know. I mean, that's what I'm planning for at the moment.
Matt's radio station has already been approved by the broadcasting authorities in Finland. He plans to transmit over weekends only, and he plans to increase his transmitter power over time. But he would like to start out with 1 kilowatt. Matt has set up a GoFundMe account to help him buy this 1 kilowatt transmitter. Programming will be in English and various Sami dialects. I think this is a great initiative. We all know how longwave is slowly dying in Europe, so if a private station like this one can keep longwave alive for a little while longer, why not? This sounds like something exciting to listen out for in the future. Matt said the 252 kHz frequency is the one that was allocated to him, as it is the only frequency that was allocated to Finland under the ITU's Geneva frequency plan of 1975. 252 kHz was used in the past by Finland's YLE longwave station, but that one was switched off in 1993. It is now, as we know, also used by Algeria, but Matt's station is based quite far away from Algeria and will be beaming towards the Arctic area. So it will be possible for people in that area itself to pick it up, and who knows how far that signal will travel. Matt's station is based in the tiny hamlet of Inari, which is widely regarded as the capital of Finnish Sami culture. The village has a population of fewer than 600 people and is literally within the Arctic Circle in Finnish Lapland. Quite a unique location for a radio station. His main target will be the Arctic area. There is a link to his website and a link to his GoFundMe in the description of this video. I really think this is an initiative that is worth supporting. On to some receiver news. The XHDATA D-220 is now available for sale on Amazon and also on the XHDATA website. On the XHDATA website, it is available at $12, which is a special launch price. The Amazon price is $16, but there is a discount code that I used and it works. This is a very small pocket radio. It reminds me of small medium wave and FM pocket radios from the 1980s. Very simple radios with basic analog display. This one has only 3 buttons: a tuning knob, the volume and on-off button, and the band selection button. The radio is described as having powerful reception, and some reviews already mentioned that it is quite sensitive. It uses a DSP chip, I don't know which one though. The radio has 2 FM bands, 1 shortwave band only, covering everything from 5,600 kHz up to 22,000 kHz, and 1 medium wave band. Definitely not a shortwave DXing machine. The shortwave signals are just packed too tightly together. But a nice travel radio, I think, for medium wave and FM listening, and some basic shortwave listening if you just want to listen to the strong signals that you are able to pick up here. I did order one. I want to have a look and see what it sounds like and how it performs, so I will add my review once I receive it. I used a discount code for my order. I found it on a number of YouTube channels, and it gave me just over $6 off the Amazon price. To end, my usual propagation forecast from the Space Weather Prediction Center at the NOAA. Periods of G1 to G2, that is minor to moderate geomagnetic storms, are likely over this weekend as I'm recording this. I'm recording this on the 11th of August. due to the anticipated influences of multiple coronal mass ejections that happened between the 8th and the 10th of August on the Sun. From the 13th of August, the CME effects will diminish. The K index is expected to fluctuate between 3 and 5 over this current weekend, and then around 2 to 3 from Tuesday, the 13th of August. And then geomagnetic field activity is expected to be mostly quiet and quiet to unsettled on Tuesday and possibly for the rest of the week. So from Tuesday, conditions are looking good. Perhaps this current weekend, not that good. That's all then for this week's Shortwave News Update. Please feel free to share your listening reports with me or to ask me to cover any news items that you are interested in. Happy listening.